Welcome to episode 2 of the Global X Innovation Series, a 3-part breakdown of the investment opportunities shaping the future from the ground up. My name is Marc Jocum. I'm a Senior Product and Investment Strategist here at Global X ETFs, and today I'm joined by my colleague Billy Leung, also a Senior Investment Strategist here at Global X ETFs. We're going to be unpacking a very exciting segment today, talking about the artificial intelligence segment, AI, very, very topical area. So welcome, Billy. To start things off, I thought we'd take a step back. End of 2022, ChatGPT just came online. Very, very innovative public breakout. And I guess from an investment perspective, we've seen AI move to a different phase, right? It was all about, this evolution from chip and compute to now talking about power and infrastructure. Maybe you can talk us through these different phases and what it's meant over the last couple of years.
Yeah, sure. That's a very interesting question, because if you look at the whole development, it's probably started a little earlier or before ChatGPT, where we had people seeing the rise in demand for semiconductors. And I would say that probably started around 2019-20, and that's probably what I call the phase one, where the semiconductor names such as your NVIDIAs, your TSMC, ASML, or even Samsung from Korea, that's when there was a lot of appeal, a lot of demand, a lot of growth from these companies. That went on for probably about 2.5 years, where we entered what I call the hyperscaler phase, where we saw a lot of these model players such as Meta, Amazon, Google. They applied all these really strong chips to actually develop much stronger models. And that's when we saw very strong, AI models coming out, such as Claude, such as OpenAI as well. Now what we're seeing right now is probably what I call the AI infrastructure phase, where we're seeing all this money spent in this, pipeline or infrastructure, and this is benefiting a lot of sectors. But I think the key to note is that AI or innovation is not linear. It's actually circular. We've moved from chips to development, to platforms, to adopters who are going to drive better chips and again drive that circular motion. It's really important to understand it's circular and not linear.
Billy, let's double click on that. You mentioned around these hyperscalers, right? These massive big tech companies, they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on capital expenditure, or CapEx as you mentioned, and they're spending it on AI infrastructure per se. Now, most investors think of infrastructure as your ports, your railroads, your airports, but my understanding is AI infrastructure is very different. Maybe you can dive deep into what this AI infrastructure actually involves.
Sure. Yeah, so put it simply, these are essentially data centers, but these are what they call hyperscale data centers. So these are much larger in terms of scale and also in terms of ability to actually analyze. So these are so-called the hyperscalers. And what that means is that it's not just the actual data center that matters, but it's also what goes into it. What goes into it includes anything from cooling equipment to cables, to your copper wiring, to IT equipment to manage the entire systems along with battery. So to understand this whole, development, it's actually very similar to when we saw the communications development back in probably 20 years ago from 3G to 4G. The cell towers were the infrastructure backbone.
That's right. Yep.
AI right now is the hyperscaling data centers.
Interesting. And with the hyperscalers, we mentioned around how much is being spent. I guess there's some concerns that they're overspending, right? Everyone's talking about AI infrastructure. I guess, how should investors really think about this in the context of previous cycles that you mentioned? So if we talk about back in the 2000s, we're talking about the internet build out or cloud adoption. Is this CapEx cycle a little bit different?
Yeah, no, good question. So I think, first of all, just using a numbers perspective, in terms of the actual investments right now in AI as a percentage of total global GDP, compared to the target addressable market of AI as a percentage of total GDP, we're only spending close to about 0.4 to 0.6% of total GDP. Whereas if you look at the past innovations such as communications, such as internet, mobile phone, these were actually much higher. So I would actually argue that we're not spending enough, that we're actually underspending. So I think that's the key. Whether or not some companies are overspending, that's probably for more analysis. But in terms of spending, I think we're at the right amount or even below right now.
And Billy, one thing that there's been a lot of noise going on at the moment around AI causing havoc, right? It's coming for both our jobs. It's going to disrupt everything. It's going to create a lot more volatility. How do you see investors really approaching this AI theme and navigating through some of the noise?
Yeah, I think one thing we have to appreciate and understand is that all innovations do have that initial disruption in terms of labor. That is definite. But what we've seen in the past is that every disruption or every innovation usually leads to new sectors or actually leads to new productivity. And I think we are entering the phase of productivity right now. And I think we've discussed this internally, Mark, and I think what we need to really see is that what companies are becoming more productive, what companies are adopting AI to become productive, or actually potentially even monetizing it. So I think probably one thing for investors investors to look out for is, which companies are actually using AI in the proper way and really sort of have this sort of big addressable market.
Definitely, and very topical given Australia's labour productivity issues as well. So Billy, sounds really exciting. I mean, as an issuer, GlobalX, leading issuer when it comes to artificial intelligence ETFs, maybe you can give us a bit of an understanding of how investors at home can get exposure to this AI theme using ETFs.
Sure. I think how we look at it is from a very, high level. We do have a product called GlobalX Artificial Intelligence ETF, and that tracks the index, which has 85 constituents, global companies, which are either companies developing AI, using AI, or has the hardware to develop AI. So it's essentially the entire value chain global. So we like this ETF because it's essentially a very easy way to get exposed to the entire value chain with the ticker code GXAI.
GXAI,
so if you have a higher conviction, or if you want to go down to sort of different segments, we also have, 3 core bits. One is, like you mentioned, the compute. So the compute is essentially the hardware, which we have the GlobalX Semiconductor ETF, or ticker code SEMI, HEMI. And if you look at the AI infrastructure part, or that cohort, we have GlobalX Artificial Intelligence Infrastructure ETF, which is AINF. And again, obviously, if you want to play the adopters or the users of AI, we also have a very strong ETF called the GlobalX FANG Plus ETF, which tracks the major tech players in the US. And again, these are a lot major enablers and adopters of AI.
There's almost an ETF for every stage of AI, right? Fantastic. Billy, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for joining us at home for episode 2. Make sure you tune into episode 3. I'll be joined back by Billy. We're going to be talking all things around robotics and humanoids, a very exciting topic. If you want to continue your journey, please jump online at www.globalxetfs.com.au/innovation to continue exploring. And we look forward to seeing you for episode 3.